6 people watching now.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and get started for today. Welcome, Region 12 members. I'm so excited for our first ever virtual Summer AIM event here in 2020. We have some great classes for you today with some wonderful presenters. We're very excited about putting this event on during this interesting time that we're living through. Just a few little points of reference for you today as you are watching the classes. First point of reference is, as you can see, sometimes we might have some technical difficulties as we're navigating through this new way of offering education here in Region 12. So if we do have technical difficulties, just bear with us and just be patient as we work through them. But again, we're so excited to be doing this. As we go through our classes today, our presenters will have different points during their presentation where they will do questions. And to navigate through any questions that you do have, please feel free to type them into the YouTube chat, and I will be reading the questions out loud to our presenters. For instance, during Lea Beverley's class here this morning, demystifying the expression category, we will be stopping periodically to take questions. So if you do have them, again, type them into the YouTube chat, and then I will be taking the questions and reading them for Lea, and she will answer them. So with that said, I would like to formally introduce our fabulous international faculty that we have for today with us. Miss Lea Beverley. She has been a member of the Sweet Adeline's International Judging Program since 2001, and she became a certified expression judge in 2006 and has been panel chair and a judge analyst. She's very excited about being with us today. She has a tremendous background. She loves to coach and has been coaching choruses all around the world, with a lot of coaching in New Zealand and Australia. And she lives in Bellevue, Washington, and where it's a little warm at the moment. And when she's not doing music, she loves to go to the beach and watch baseball and be crafty by doing some craft projects. So without further ado, I welcome Lea Beverley.
Hello, it's great to be with y'all virtually from the comforts of my own home. I'm excited to talk about expression. Everybody is always asking, what is the expression category? Sometimes people think it's related to showmanship, that it's about facial expressions. And so it's gonna, well, kind of it is, but that's not what I judge. So we're gonna go through what the judging elements are and play some performances that I think you'll like, and to give examples of things. I love having questions. So please write questions. I want to make sure I can answer anything that you throw at me. And if not, I'll research it. I first want to say that my very first time to trial score to apply to get into the program was in your region in 2000. And that was one of the scariest moments of my life. I was sitting in the auditorium, I think it was in Sacramento, and I was sitting at the little table that behind the real judges, and the first contestant in the quartet contest came on, and I was like this for about, I don't know, maybe the whole first song, and I thought, I've got to write something. So I wrote something, and I don't even know if I could read it. And then I had to come up with a score, and I had no idea. It could have been 100 or it could have been 0. Somewhere definitely in between, but I had no idea. So I just plopped a number down there. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so got a little bit better as the day progressed. And in the break, I think Pat McKinless was in there, the trial scorer. I was the only trial scorer, and we were in with the pages and stuff and MCs. And she was like, you're going to be okay. And I didn't know her. You're going to be okay. So I survived it. That went and read everything. And then the next morning, went through my sheets with the expression judge, who was Carol Kirkpatrick, who was also my director. And then course contest, I was calm, easy peasy. And I think there were 11 or 12 contestants, and I did great. So I have such mixed emotions about your region, because I have fear and then I have joy. So ultimately joy went out. So the fear is long gone. But those were the two memories that I specifically have from 20 years ago when I started this path to being a judge, which has been an incredible thing to be part of. I want to talk a little about expression in that in a holistic way. Expression is all about heart. It's all about emotion that we talk about. It's um, the vocal emotion that you present to the audience, and we want the audience to go away remembering and feeling and things like that. And the way to get there is through all the excellent technical things and the unity of all that. But it's what we want to leave the audience is emotion. And I volunteer usher for the arts here in the Seattle area, and I get to go to a lot of amazing performances. And so I see lots of musicals, and especially, what a surprise that I pick a lot of those. Um, and and I've loved them my entire life. I went to the first one when I was 10 in Houston, Texas. So um, what I thought of the three musicals that I think are my favorites, and they're Come From Away, Phantom of the Opera, and Hamilton, which is a new favorite. And I haven't seen it live, but I did have watched the video a few times. Um, and for all different reasons. Hamilton, because of the sheer genius of the lyrics, and it's just to take that topic and um, come up with such clever, rhyming, exciting words and rhythms. Um, the Phantom of the Opera, it was the first really grand one I saw that had such amazing staging, and I had heard the CD 200 at least times. I knew every word of every song, and hopefully did not hum along. And that when that chandelier, I was at the Amundsen Theater in LA, and that chandelier came down, I was like, oh, it took my breath away. And I have vivid memories of that, and that was from 30 years ago. And then about 2 or 3 years ago, I ushered in our big 2,000 seat theater here, and it was called Come From Away, which is about 9/11, when the planes had to land in Canada, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, for because they couldn't come to the States, and how these little towns took over these our fellow citizens and other worldwide citizens. And I mean, that's not a topic that you think would be great for a musical, but it's in my top three. And I don't know one song from there. I've never heard any of the songs. I've never heard them since. I couldn't hum a tune. The staging was very basic, but well done. Costuming was incredibly simple because it was the clothes they were wearing on the plane. Um, but what I came away from that was about the emotional journey we went on. We went from being in um, we would be tearful, we'd be fearful and tearful. I mean, men in the audience were crying as well. Then there's laughter, and it was just all this stuff that formed this beautiful story. And at the intermission and at the end, I've probably ushered 30 or 40 musicals at this theater, and I've never seen a reaction from the crowd that way. It was a buzz, it was a high, and they're like, I can't believe this. And people were coming back multiple times because it was so good. And that to me is what expression is. We don't have to remember what song it was or how good their diphthongs, although I do confess I do listen to that sometimes. And it could be impressed, but it's about how you feel. And that was to me what this category is. And I thought, if you ever get a chance to see Come From Away, it's definitely worth going to see. So how do you get to that, right? How do you get to that? And that's what we're calling demystifying the expression category. So the way that it works um, in our score sheet, that I've kind of written this class, and you'll get this handout of these exact slides. And I'm going to try not to do every bullet point because you can read. I'm assuming. If you're a barber shopper or a sweet Adeline, we can read and do lots of multitask. So I forgot to tell you I have a weird sense of humor. So I don't know some of you or many of you. So just know I'm a little quirky, and I won't get to hear you laughing, but I'm always going to assume that you are because I'm just so darn witty. But that aside, so I've written this to go along with how the score sheet runs. So there's two sides to the score sheet, the technical elements and the artistic elements. And about 10 or 12 years ago, I was on a committee that revamped the expression category. And we went from having it be where we call it category weights, where in our case, 40% was based of the score was based on technical kind of issues and 60% on the artistic side. They weren't called exactly that then. And we changed it so that there's not a weighting, that we can recognize artistic elements at all levels and technical, of course, all the way through. So we're a little bit different than the other three categories in that respect. So you have the technical and then the artistic. Then, so what are the technical elements? Well, those are on the upper left side of the score sheet. Vocal skills, synchronization, unity, word delivery, musicality, and we'll go through each one of those individually. Vocal skills, how many times do we hear about that? Why? Because it's important. All four judges judge vocal skills. It's the same language on our descriptor sheet of what's the level of vocal skills for a C minus, C plus, all the way up to A plus. So we have some wording, and all four judges have that same wording, and it's the levels of proficiency basically on vocal skills. So making a difference in your vocal skills will improve your performance level in all four categories, but more importantly to the audience. Probably the basic skill in that is breathing. And I'm glad your next class is about that. We talk a lot about that in Sweet Islands because it's so darn important. It's the foundation of everything. So we're not going to go, it's not a class on breathing. Dee Dee's a master at that, but just know that what she's going to talk about is critically important to the success. How we look at it would be different perhaps than maybe the sound judges, is that I analyze how well your breath skills support your phrase plan, your resonant vowels and things like that. So I don't reference how you're breathing, how good your breathing skills are. I reference how they impact the plan and the execution of the plan, which is a slightly different twist than than the other categories. The next big area that you may have seen on a score sheet is synchronization. And singing in sync is so difficult, and we are so darn demanding on it. When you listen to other ensembles, often they don't pay as much attention to it as we do. And that's, I think, one of the primary reasons, because we're a cappella. We don't have an instrument to cover us. And so if somebody's singing at a different time, it can be very disturbing. From my perspective, from the expression viewpoint, it makes words less easy to understand. So your effective of your story, the storytelling is going to be less effective because of that, which I think is, that's probably the primary reason I care about it. And there's several different kinds of sync. And there's the broadest level where after you take a breath to start the phrase together, or start the initial part of the song together, releasing the phrases together, that would be the most basic level of sync. And then it goes up to more and more detail and more minutia that define it. The next level would be within the phrase, using attacking each of the words together, starting a word together and ending it together. And then the highest level of sync is when we're looking at not only are you attacking the word together, but is your vowel matched and turned to the diphthong, if there is one, or whatever, or the consonant or whatever at the same time. And is the energy of the diphthong, synced in with each other. So that level of sync the highest level of sync really comes to play probably when you get to high B plus A minus, when you're approaching the 80s and the 90s, and I've never heard a performance that didn't have sync issues. Now, I will say that there are performances that I've heard live, and that when I wasn't judging, that I didn't notice that there were sync issues. And even sometimes when I've judged and afterwards we get the video of what we judged, I listened to it and I thought, I didn't hear that and that and that, because barbershop's a live sport. and because it's all about the emotion. So this the amount of the liveness of our sound plus the heartfelt energy and stuff that sometimes when it doesn't come through live because you're caught up in these other issues. So, which is a good thing, I think. So when I'm judging at international and I'm judging some of these groups that are in the 90s or 95s or 96s or 97s, I get caught up in that. And so I don't necessarily hear all that stuff that the A vowel isn't matched and the diphthong isn't turned together. So sync is a big deal. I have a couple of examples for you. The first one is of a broad sync, and the second is of more of the attacking of releasing of the words together.
Oops, sorry.
No, that's where it ends. That's the whole thing.
Boys and my little ones loved long ago still clutter the room here and there, here and there. Oh.
The second one.
Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, yes, somewhere.
Cool. So you could hear in the first one that there were, it was very little that was in sync. But I do have to say about that performance, I appreciate the joy with which they were singing, and they had a commitment to the story. And as the song evolves, it's about a teddy bear, and you can see and hear lots of love in their voices. So that's a good aspect of what they're doing. But as far as the synchronization, that's not yet high on their skill set. The second group with Rainbow, it's a real solid group, good singing, and they were new. I think they were only 2 or 3 years old, maybe at the most, when they did that performance. And they've subsequently gone on to be in Harmony Classic a couple times and come in, I think, second both times. So it's a very fine chorus from London. And there you could hear that the sync was attacking the words on, and it sounded a little cluttered. And so from my perspective, the words were more difficult to understand, and it lacked unity, which is the next element, which is up on the screen. So that's, I think, those are two, and then it just gets more and more detailed from there. But I think those examples give you a good overview of what we're kind of looking at least I hope they do. The next up is unity. And well, we want everything unified. That's what it is. We don't have a piano or a cello or a trombone or an orchestra to cover what we're doing. So we can hear every little flaw, unfortunately. So a unified vowels, unified approach to the storytelling, unified approach to and execution of the dynamics, vocal characterization and the nuances, which we'll talk about later. All those things, breathing, unified approach to breathing. I think that's it's just where it's at. The biggest thing when we're talking about breathing too, I just want to add this here because there's different types of breathing. So you have the breathing for your skill to make your sound and have your tone flow, but you also have artistic breathing, and artistic breathing comes into play pretty much when you're sometimes in the higher B levels, but into the B plus and the A minuses and above. It's emotional breathing and stuff, and that can make a big difference too. So I love artistic breathing. It's kind of fun. So unity, unity, unity. And there are times on score sheets I'll just write, especially to a quartet, it's all about the unit, unit, and the unit approach to the details. And the more and more you're unified, the higher your score will be, and the more the audience will not be disturbed, even if they don't know what's disturbing them, because it will be as one, which I think is an amazing thing that we do. You can get, 150, 160 people for the biggest choruses down to 4, and we want it all to be unified. I think that's asking a lot, and I think for the most part, we are amazing at it. So the next topic is, the next slide. It didn't go. Is it going? Is synchronous, yeah, is word delivery. Okay, there is word delivery. And there are 4 different things within word delivery that I judge. And we're going to go over each of them individually. The first one is vowels, which is my favorite. I love vowels. I dream of vowels. Vowels are my life. Yes, I live a boring life, especially right now, but I just love them. I think I learned to love them because I came from Texas and I moved to Alaska for work, and I was in my mid-20s, and I had a good old Texas accent, and I talked like this, and I worked in the all business and all that kind of stuff. I was tired of getting to work, and that's how I talked. I might be exaggerating slightly, but not too much. And the ladies in the office next to me was from Canada, and she would make fun of all things of the way I talked. Like she had a right to do that, eh? But anyway, she was great. So she said, "You've got to get rid." I go, "I'm trying." So I lived about 20 minutes away from the office when it wasn't in a bad snowstorm. And so I'd practice, and I'd go in every week or so and say, "Tire." Nope, not there yet. So I kept working, and after a couple of months, I had tire, fire, oil, and she's like, "You've got it, you've got it." And I think that's why I like them so much. I don't know. And being a Texan or a Southerner, I can make almost any one syllable word into 3, and I was always proud of that. And so that's why I like diphthongs. So anyway, that's probably a little bit more information than you wanted to know about that, my personal life and vowels, but I have a passion for vowels. And vowels are, they're the foundation of sound, right? There's some consonants that are singable, and we'll talk about that. But for the most part, our sound comes through in our in a vowel. So that's just how it is. We need consonants, otherwise we would be singing Gregorian chants, but which are lovely. But we need vowels, and they need to be matched. So there's the 5 primary vowels that we sing in the Italian way, that a, e, o, and u. And so like the A is the EH vowel is like the word day would be EH and EE. So it's the combination of those 2. Oh, that's in the next slide. Sorry. Preview of the diphthongs. So 2 of them are diphthongs. What I look at is I want your vowels to be the proper vowel for the word, unless it's for an affect or something. I mean, if it's purposely done, that's fine. But in general, I want it to be the proper English diction vowel. I want it to be matched. So all the singers singing it in the same way. I want it to be resonant. I want it to be tall. And those are similar things to the sound judge. They come at it from a slightly different angle, but it's a key element for me. And diction and the pronunciation of the word is important. So because we want the song, the word, and the lyrics to be understandable to the audience, so that you can effectively communicate. So vowels are critically important. Now, there are times that we morph vowels when say, for instance, the tenors will go really high in their range. Sometimes we'll modify the vowel there, and that's totally fine, because that makes it sound better and not pinched and whatever. So I'm not talking about that thing, but in general, the vast majority of the time. The general rule to say is a text thing, which that's what my career was in, is text. And so the general rule is that we want them to be matched and pure. So vowels rock. Diphthongs. Oh, that's another good one, isn't it? So it's a combination of two vowels. And like I said, the I words and the A words are two of the most common ones with the diphthong. So you have the first vowel in I is ah, and then the second one is E. So we want them to be equally resonant. And we want them turned together for the synchronization and the clarity. And we want them to occur. So there's times when people won't put in the diphthong, or are trying, but it's not coming through. And so that makes a word different. And I think let's see what now. Of course, I can't think of anyone. Well, if the word "by," if you say "ba," that's different than "by." "Ba," like a sheep. So those kinds of things. So words like that. So we want the second vowel of diphthong to be energized and to release on the up. And sometimes we anticipate the turning of the diphthongs, so people turn it too soon. So that distorts the sound category. Doesn't like that, and I don't either, because it changes the word, and it certainly affects the ring for the sound judge. And then we on the second vowel, we want it to be turned together in an open way with probably oftentimes more length than we think is necessary. There's a tendency to clip the second vowel. So we want it not to be equal with amount of time, because it's the secondary vowel, but we do want to hear it. And so that's a key element of that. Now the A is the E and the E. So they're both kind of, if you master those, you're going to get probably 70% of the diphthongs that are out there. So I love diphthongs too. Now there's some words that are like W has there's an E. Wait, why? Well, never mind. I'm getting myself confused. Never mind. Moving on. Brain. I was going to say a word that I won't say because it's being recorded. Consonants. That's the next big thing. I mean, consonants form the word. So otherwise we have the chant. With the consonants, it makes it legible to the ear of what you're saying. So most of them, there's percussive consonants, and then there's the singable consonants. So examples of percussive consonants would be like B and peep, those kinds of things where there's no pitch with them. So it's a pitched and unpitched, or other terms that are used. And then the ones that we really like to talk about and utilize are the singable consonants, which the primary ones are L, M, N, and V. They all can be sing. So if you could do a vocal exercise or moving note on a consonant, that means it's pitched and that you can, it's a singable consonant. So we want to utilize those. And it's like the word love it's all singable, the v, love. So we want to hear all those sounds. And I love you is all singable. There's no percussiveness in that. So we want to hear all the I love you. We want to hear all those beautiful word sounds. So singable consonants are really, really cool. We also, the percussive consonants, they can be really impactful and fun and add a lot of flavor and nuance to a performance. The B's and the p and those kinds of stuff. So the G's and lots of them can be really great. And I've got an example coming up of a course that uses them exceptionally well. The difficulty with the consonants is that it takes a great level of skill to sing through the percussive consonants and not make it sound choppy. So it's that balance of having the consonants be clear, but not making it so that it interrupts the lyrical flow. And that it's a conundrum, and it's incredibly difficult, but we want you to be able to achieve. So that's the side. Singables, there's no percussiveness, so that immediately takes that away for the smooth delivery bit percussiveness. And then I have what I call my problem child consonants. These are the nemesis to me of consonants. The R, the S, and the T. The S is so difficult to be precise on those, isn't it? By golly, we try, and the directors will do this, and they'll do this, and they'll do that. There are all these really great hand tools trying to get us to be precise. It's just hard because we're in our zest. We often will anticipate the S's, especially at the beginning of the words. And T's the same way, and because they're percussed, we can, they really pop out. So those are, the S and the T are similar in that respect. The R is a little different. And when I coach, I actually refer to the R as a vowel. I call it the R vowel. So if I were to spell out R, I would spell it UHR. So it'd be so you would hear you'd hear the with the R at the very end. Otherwise it's and there's a tendency overall by the vast majority of us, myself included, is to do the and it just closes down the sound and it makes the word just not as good. I don't know how to describe it. So R vowel, if you think of it as a vowel, and if you think of the and having your tongue at the base of your gum line when you change to the R, it's very satisfactory to me as a judge and as a listener. So why don't you just try that right now in the privacy of your own home? You sound great. That was my humor, but I'm sure you do. So if that makes sense to you. You have a question, Allison?
Yes, we do have a question from Birgit. She said, she has problems with her L's, and she is asking, how do you think L words should be sung? For example, love, life, words like that.
Okay. And if you individually have a problem, hopefully you can have somebody who can help you work through it. But in general, what I want with the L is, so I have my tongue at the top, love, I have it up at the roof of my mouth, love, and it comes down on the vowel, la 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 la. So I have it right there. That's like a good basic L, I think. And if it's so with the word love, or so I love you, and we want it. If it's in the middle of the word, like fall in love. So I didn't put much L in there. Fall in love. So I went fall in love. I actually made the L inside the word with, this is a finer detail, but with a little bit of a UH in front of it. So fall, I made it a 3-part word, fall in love. So the before the L helps make the L more open and complete, I think. It's a fall, it's a fall. So anyway, that helps. And the same thing with V, because a lot of our songs, especially in ballads, are about love. And so in that you have the 2, right? So love, that would be too long on the V. But you can hear how it's pitched. Love you. And if I take the V out and just kind of glide through it, love you, there's a different, you can hopefully hear the difference between the 2. And it's more unified if you use a singable consonants as an ensemble, because you're going to be better in sync. Because if I said love you, and somebody else went love you, it's not going to sound in sync because you're not going to hit the U at the same time. So that's another asset of using the singables. Same thing with M. One of my favorite words is moonlight, and I think it's in Once Upon a Time, and other songs too, but that's a song I coach a lot. I love the word moonlight, and there are 7 word sounds in moonlight. The ah, eat, moonlight, moonlight. So it's all singable till you get the T at the end. I just think it's a word that's so good to onomatopoeia. It sounds like it is in the moonlight. I just love it. So anyway, that's another little piece of trivia. Moonlight has 7 word sounds, 2 of which are singable consonants. There's other great words, but that's one of my favorites. So here are examples. This is an example of incredible use of consonants.
She hugs the shore, headed for good old Baltimore. See the paddle turning, hear the water churning, Queen of Chesapeake Bay. Now, come on, Jimmy, put your best suit on. Come on, Jim, for the steamboat's gone. Everything is lovely on the Chesapeake Bay. All aboard for Baltimore. Come on, meet me at the shore. Look here, Captain, let us catch that boat. Mister, we can't swim, and honey, we can't float. Folks are
Okay. So isn't that phenomenal? I mean, of course, it's the Melodiers, they're terrific. But all those consonants and the ch, the k, the, I mean, it was just fabulous. I mean, it's just absolutely, I was gobsmacked. And I just added this one in to talk about recently. And so when I was reviewing a whole lot of other performances, and I actually wrote Jim ours, and I texted him the other day and said, I have to tell you, I'm just in love. I'm just in love with this performance because of blah, blah, blah. And I said, the consonants, it's just amazing. So anyway, he was happy to get that email, but it's truly magnificent. So somebody wants me to do the R vowel again. So this is how you would do how I do the R. You go, R. So I have my tongue at the base of my gum, down at, of course down here, not up there. And I do the UH. So R, far. So with the word far, F-A-R, I do F-A-H, if I'm spelling it phonetically, F-A-H-U-H-R, far, far. So I have the in there and a little bit of R at the end. So far away. So that's to use it inside of a phrase. That's how it would go. So hopefully that helps. Okay. Enunciation. It's so that you can understand the words, right? It's important. I do love vocal inflections and nuances. And at the very end of that, they had one where they went like this and then they went like that. We'll talk about that more in the embellishments class, but vocal inflections and using explosive words like, let's see, hot to, those kinds of things like that. I think that's very exciting. So yeah, so great. All right, so enunciation, do it. I'm just kidding, but no, seriously, do it. Musicality, we added this to the score sheet when we did that rewrite a few years ago. I consider this kind of an umbrella of what the different, of things, of how each of these elements, whether technical or artistic, impact the overall effectiveness of the delivery of your song. It could be tempo. If there's a lot of tempo changes that are just don't make sense or aren't well done or transitioned well, and so talk about in the tempo, but it could affect the overall impact of the song. And it also can be where vowels aren't open and matched, and there's a lot of closed sound, and that it just, that kind of where you just kind of do one of those kinds of things. So it's overall how musical is a performance, and virtually any element could impact that. So that's in the last one on the technical side. Now we get to the artistic, which is, what all the stuff we just talked about is the good of this. So lyric flow. Lyric flow is how well does the phrase move? And I'm going to lump this together with forward motion and talking about it, even though it's on another slide. So if you think of we talk about forward motion all the time, and it's kind of a nebulous thing because it's not talked about that often in other the rest of the civilian world. So for me, if you're thinking of you're driving in a car and it's a really smooth ride and it starts great and it ends great and you're ready to go for the next, that would be a nice lyric flow that's smooth, and it has good forward motion. When you have some, the big lurching, somebody's just learning to drive and they're doing that with the gas pedal, that could be some pretty big interruption of the lyric flow. And my dad, he's a wonderful man in every respect, but his driving was horrific. And he had he didn't know he was doing it, but he kept moving that gas pedal just subtly. So we were in the back seat, my brother and I, feeling nauseous. And that's just a same kind of thing happens in the phrase, where each word will be kind of like that, and then it'll flow like that. So those are some things that can interrupt the lyric flow and that are forward motion related. These are all very interrelated. So lyrics, which is one of the things about the beauty of Hamilton, is all the rhyming stuff. But there's a poem or a prose, in his case, rap or hip hop stuff. There's a natural flow, and sometimes in the ballads, we might want to make them too predictable. We almost always prefer the ad-lib style in ballads, but there is an implied meter. So if you go out of what the expected cadence of the phraseology is, and it doesn't make up, you take from here, rob from here, and pay later, it's going to have like something wasn't quite right kind of feeling. So that's really important. So for the lyric flow, and that goes right into phrasing, which you want the phrases, which is the next slide. You want them to be energized and things like that. And what I look at too, and it changes depending on the level of the performance, is the use of the important words. So it's next slide, Randy. I have words, I call them the important words, and unimportant. All words are important, but I'm unimportant. I'm kind of calling like the uhs and the these and those kind of thes and stuff like that. And sometimes the arranger, because it's this powerful thing or whatever, we have to hold on a to or a or something like that. I will give them that because of the arrangement. But if it's in the middle of a lyrical line, it's almost always not good to hold a the or an or some really word that doesn't have a lot of meaning. The word I, however, can have a lot of meaning because it's a personal pronoun. The word you is important because I love you. Those are two words. I love you. I mean, it's a very different, you can say that a number of different ways, probably have in your lifetime. You could sing in a lot of different ways and have it all have meaning. So almost any word can become important, but we want to de-emphasize the ones that are important, but yet sing them with equal amount of energy and stuff. Now, breathing and where breaths are. So I'm a proponent of, you can have a breath almost anywhere you want if your breathing skills can create artistic breaths, so that you can take a breath wherever you want, and I won't even necessarily know that you've taken one. However, there are times when people take them where it just totally interrupts what's being said. Like if I were going to say, what's that in the road ahead? That breath made a big difference, right? What's that in the road ahead? Like, oh my gosh, there's a head in the road. No, or what's in the road ahead? So that's where that to me is a simple example of when you're planning your breathing plan, look to where the lyrics are and does it interrupt what you're trying to say and what the whole phrase is trying to mean. Now, if I were going to take a breath, what's in the road ahead? That almost would cover that one, but not quite. But there are a lot of times when it can, and lyrics that are less strike than that. So that's what I'm talking about, the location of breaths. And sneak breaths can happen if they're well done. So being a good sneak breather is a great skill. Sorry, directors, or maybe the directors are happy about that. Forward motion. So I already talked about that, but it's because we're in barbershop, we just have to do it. So the breath artistry is a big helper in keeping the forward motion going. So if you sing your phrase with great smooth energy, you take an energized breath, and you come in together on your next phrase, you're going to do amazingly well, and you won't lose the audience interest. So then we have embellishments, which is one of the favorite things about our barbershop hobby, is that we have so many of these to use. I've got a whole class on this afternoon on this, and there's lots and lots of examples of this. So I won't go into it, but just know that they're a critical part of what makes one of our songs so interesting. So there's a whole lot of them, and we'll go into them in great detail later this afternoon. Dynamics. So there's a tendency to sing things louder maybe than would be prudent. If you sing things all at one volume, regardless of what the volume is, whether it's at pianissimo or at fortissimo or at mezzo forte, it's going to be boring to the audience. So we like to have dynamic variety. That's one reason. It shows your skills. That's another reason, but mostly it's because it adds variety and interest for the audience. And we want the dynamic to be tied to what the arranger has, the chord structure and all that, but also with the lyrics. And our fabulous arrangers, they almost always are congruent. So there's not usually a conflict in that. And there's not necessarily one right dynamic plan either. You can hear the same song done by 5 different choruses, and they will have a different dynamic plan perhaps, which is fantastic. So you want your dynamic plan to be well planned and well executed, with lots of support at all the levels. We seem to sing best at mezzo forte to forte. That's our comfort zone. So the breathing skills can be more demanding at the piano and pianissimo and at the fortissimo. So at the 1s and the 5, the extremes are more difficult, I think, to finesse. So just know that adding variety is a good thing, but we want to know what you can do well. So doing softs and louds for the sake of it, if it's not within your skill set, it's probably better to delay adding that. So what's the question?
So we have a question from Kathy, and her question is, when judging, do you tend to just do the technical first, or watch for the technical first and then watch for the artistic, or do you listen to it all at one time, since the artistic is so dependent on the technical skills?
Oh, that's a great question. I love that. I listen to it holistically. So we have something in the judging world called instant leveling. You probably had people, your directors or coaches say, they instant leveling, your intro is really important. And it is, not just because of that, but because it sets you up for success. If you start out great, you're more likely to continue great. If you start out of sync and with low energy, it's harder to get back on the unified track. So that's not just because the judges, we want the intro to be exciting. So I listen to it holistically. And then as the song progresses, I will start noting the technical stuff. There's kind of, many have a hierarchy of which we listen. And of course, it changes depending on the song and all that kind of stuff. But I tend to listen for the sync and the vowels and stuff like that first. I can't address the tempo till almost the end of the song because it could change. If I write about it too soon, I could be in trouble and it will have morphed, and then my statement is no longer accurate. Then I add a little word most of the time, or well done, or something. So that's how I approach it. So I have a hierarchy that I listen to. Obviously, I can't address the plan and things like that till the very end. Yeah. So, and we don't have an eraser, unfortunately. So that's why we scribble out or try. The worst thing that can happen is when you're writing a sentence and it no longer makes sense. Like you got distracted, like I'll write a word from the song and I'm like, how am I going to make this? Do I just scratch it out, or do I try to make not a run on? And so there, if you see interestingly phrased, sometimes a sentence, if you can read it, is interestingly phrased. It's probably because we got a little distracted and had to try to make it work. So that's why typing would be so much better. Plus you could read it. So dynamics, I love dynamics. Next is tempo and rhythm. And the Melodiers performance has an amazing tempo. So from the music judge addresses this as well. I addressed it as how appropriate it is to the song. Is it a good pace so that we can still hear, is the tempo good so that we can still hear the lyrics? Is it too slow so it drags? Is it too fast so it's becomes choppy and clipped and words less understandable? We want one that suits your performance and your skill. And we also want, so it is backbeat versus downbeat. Those are two different, ways of singing. We want the whole chorus to be on the same one. Sometimes the sync problems that we hear are because some of the people are backbeat singers and some are downbeat, or the director is a backbeat director, but she's trying to direct it up to in the other way in backbeat, and so there's that conflict. So anyway, that's something that can cause some issues. And then going in and out of tempo changes, especially in and out of stomps, there's a kind of a formulaic way to do it in general. There are some varieties, but for the most part, it's done the same, similar way. So we want the transitions in and out of that, as well as sometimes people add extra tempos that are probably unintentional. You can see sometimes people will speed up. So as the song progressed, the speed of your tempo was rapid. So we want it to be pulsed and just to be the foundation for your song and the implied meter in the ballad. But the uptunes are almost all, tempo is almost all just like one of the be-alls and end-alls of that. So the next is we have inflections. Oh, we have an example. Oh, good. Okay.
She hugs the shore, headed for good old Baltimore. See the cattle turning, hear the water churning, Queen of Chesapeake Bay. Now, come on, Jimmy, put your best suit on. Come on, Jim, for the steamboat's gone. Everything is lovely on the Chesapeake Bay. All aboard for Baltimore. Come on, meet me at the shore. Look here, Captain, let us catch that boat. Mister, we can't swim, and honey, we can't float. Folks are...
Yeah, great. So, I mean, that's the Melodiers again, and you'll hear them again this afternoon for the vocal inflections. But you could see, I mean, it was did you find yourself moving along with it? And the breaths didn't interrupt. One of the common places for the pulse to be interrupted is on the breaths not being within the meter. So the breaths need to be within the meter as well. Question?
Yes, the question is from Julie, and she is asking, do you have a rule of how many times the tempo should change in a song?
No, there is no rule. If they're done, they can change. I mean, you don't want to have 40 of them, but I've heard 4 or 5 tempo changes sometimes effectively done. You want to only do as many as you do well. I'm not trying to be trite, but that's really the truth. Because if they're seamless and you take it and that makes sense with the arrangement and the lyrics and all that stuff, and and you do it well, we're gonna go, wow, that was impressive. I've also heard a quartet that was a good quartet, like top 3 regional quartet, that did a song that had 10 or 12 in them, and it was so disjointed that you got so caught up in the tempo changes that you didn't notice the actual what the song was about. It was just, you just felt like what it was just too much, and that perhaps would be too many, but I've certainly heard at least 4, maybe 5 effectively done. So the next is inflections, vocal. And so the what you just heard, they have that that's making adding character to your sound, and ooh-la in the that kind of sound. My gosh, we thought the Julia or whatever, or the Maryland, those things. Those are vocal inflections, or changing the word, and those are inflections, textures, vocal nuances, all in the same category. So it's using some of the word sounds to make it way more exciting and make it fresh and unique to your chorus and to your performance. Energy. This is the other this is okay. Here's a video on inflection. I thought this was tempo. Okay, go ahead.
When that I'll be there, so there I come.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I wanted this one here because it had the inflections, when and the shh, shh, all those. So those are the vocal inflections and use of consonants. And then that was a tempo change. They had slowed, they had to stomp thing. Then they did an accelerando to get back into their tempo. So that was an example for both of those last two things we've talked about. And that was the Lionsgate chorus. So energy, this could be a lifelong topic, couldn't it? It's just so important. I mean, we talk about it all the time. We don't want it to be manufactured. Well, I don't want to say it that way. Energy, we want it to be innate energy as much as possible. It comes from physical freedom and confidence and all kinds of stuff and lots of air. So there's a compendium of energy, and as you're learning energy, sometimes there's manufactured energy, which is better than no energy. And then as the skill level improves, it becomes just more of how you are as a performer, and it affects everything. I've heard some groups that would score in other, like the sound category, maybe 86, 88 on the song, and the expression judges would have them at, or me or whoever is studying, 78, 79. And it could be because of the energy, because that makes the whole plan. So there can be differences in levels between the judges. Might not usually be quite that much, but it'd be sometimes a whole level different. And oftentimes it's the energy and the plans, because it's really difficult to have a successful dynamic and phrase plan without vocal energy. So it's one of the things that we just demand, and keep working at it. It's always a goal. Next is a fun one though. This is where we're getting the artsy fartsy part, finesse and artistry. You know it when you hear it kind of thing, I think, on that. So elements of this can start creeping in, usually in start sometimes earlier, but if I on the score sheet, if we're going to talk about this, in general, I would talk about it when it's a solid B+ and above. Certainly when you get in the A's, it's pretty much a lot. And it's just that wonderful integration of the technical and artistic elements to make your performance just genuine and heartfelt. It's the level of that. And it's having the unified technical elements be so innate and so behind what your story is that gets you to that level for finesse and artistry. And we'll show a performance of that at the end. Characterization. This is something we added again in our redo of the expression category. We added this as a line item because we want to encourage that. So this makes things fun. And I have heard successful elements of characterization at groups in the C level, and even at like the regular C around the 400 level. So a score of 50 or so, 52, 49, it's probably around 50 or above. I can start hearing elements of characterization, and I love it, and the audiences love it. So it's really fun to do, and you want to do, if you do it, even if you're at the groups that don't score as high, pick one or two phrases or little lines to do it in, and just have some fun with it. And your audience will like it, and you'll get more and more skilled at it. It's a huge part of what we're doing. And I think sometimes because the showmanship people talk so much about characterization, I'm of course talking about vocal characterization, but the two go really hand in hand. It's really difficult to sing with emotion and character if you're like that. I'm so excited. I just can't hide it. Right? You just can't. I'm so excited. They go hand in hand the vast majority of the time. So that all four categories are integrated. This is a really good example of where show and expression really can come to light, to merge. And also, this is sometimes you see show and expression that have maybe a few points higher than the sound and the music. It's these kind of elements that we can reward, because of the audience communication that perhaps the other two judges they can't yet, and that's at the level reward as much. So this is it's really cool. So I would encourage you to do it. It's huge, and I see it more and more and more as we go out, and I think it's fantastic. Next is emotional communication. All these are very much, these last three are very interrelated. This is really the crux of when I talked at the beginning about the come from away. This is it. This is emotional communication. Whether it's it's sorrow, it's joy, it's love, it's lust. We all would like that when we, well, maybe not everybody, but I know I would. Too much information. Delete that on the video. So this is what it's all about. So if you have all the other stuff that we've talked about, this is where you end up with genuine, heartfelt, emotional communication. And when you're in the audience and you hear that, you're grateful. I mean, there's times I've come away, I have tears in my eyes from the joy I got in the 4 minutes or 6 minutes that they've sung. I mean, we ask a lot of you guys as performance to take us a place we don't even know what you're going to sing within 7 minutes to make us either laugh or cry or fall in love with you, or whatever the emotion is that you desire. And it's the unification of all the skills and in my opinion, a big part of that is the commitment to the story and the vocal thing that you're telling. It's all about the story and the communication of the poem, the prose, the lyrics that the lyricists have given us and the arrangers have made magnificent. I have 3 examples, and one, let's do that one last. Let's do the, yeah. So this is Rainbow. You heard the vocal dimension, and the next one is they're going to sing Rainbow. It's a different arrangement, another group, and just listen for the difference of the plan and think of all the different elements that we've talked about. Okay.
Someday I wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops away above the chimney tops. That's where you'll find me, yes, somewhere. Somewhere over the rainbow way up high, there's a land that I heard of once in a lullaby. A lullaby. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that you dare to dream really do come true. Come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star and wake up where the clouds are far behind me. Behind me, where troubles melt like lemon drops.
pretty good, huh? What did you think of their vowels and their breathing and where they took their breaths? I'm just kidding. Actually, I was listening for that, but that's because I do. So these girls are ladies are from Sweden, and so they're singing in a foreign language, and you wouldn't know it. So this is something that I judge, right? The keeping of the American dictions. So that was fantastic. And both of these groups were out of the U.S. The first one was from London. So their finesseful use of consonants and the diphthongs and the R vowel, because over the rainbow, you have so many R's, don't you? And they even did slides on the over. So they did it on the R. I mean, that is so hard, and they did it so well. I just love all aspects of that. And that's an amazingly talented group of singers that worked really hard on the basics. The director was just unrelenting on the vocal skills, and and the vowels and all that sure shows. And they're still terrific today. I think they were the first chorus. They won the Harmony Classic with this in 2008 and scored an A-, I think. But they were the first chorus, I think a small chorus to ever score over 700. And they've been in the top 10 quite a few times at international. So anyway, that's that. So this last performance is the Renegat Show chorus, and this is one where I was sitting in the audience. This is when they won in Honolulu, and I literally was crying at this. I'd never heard anything in barbershop to me that was so poignant, and I've had the good fortune to judge in Sweden quite a few times, so I know these ladies, and I've taught some classes there. And I know the director is just, or she was, I mean, she's no longer the director, but Brittelin is just an amazingly talented person who's so artistic. And I've judged the last 2 times they've competed. I've judged before they went to compete, so I've heard their song the first time. I would be the first panel of judges to hear it, and they've had a song 6 or 8 weeks, and they sing like they do it internationally. It's just absolutely amazing. It's all because of the attention to all the vocal skills. So sit back, relax, and enjoy Some Enchanted Evening.
Sorry. I was trying to skip forward.
Brand new start of it.
One magic moment, whispering your name. If you seize the moment, nothing may ever be the same. Never may be the same.
are longing to
Stop it.
stray and step right.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. Although I love Bertilla, it's like isn't that like amazing? And I mean, if I was thinking technically and hearing the transitions between the dynamics and the effective view, I mean, talk about dynamic masterclass. And then to go from the softest of softs to the biggest of louds with just a beautiful transition. Also, the effective use of pauses and the timing of the phrase. Some who have found him never let him. That it was just so personal and well done. So I love that chorus for obvious reasons. And the last thing I'll say about that is in last year before they went to New Orleans, I was judging at Sweden, and we went to the rehearsal. They were competing for evaluation. So 3 of the judges went to the rehearsal in Reniga on the Tuesday afterwards. And so we don't generally go to a course and have, when they're reading the score sheets and watching the video, but that we did. And so they had each of us read our score sheets, and it was so cool to do that and to do that with them. And of course you had to find things to say to get better. They want it to be detailed, so we had to listen analytically, but it was so fun to just actually be there and share that with them. So it was a real highlight judging experience. So I hope you understand better the expression category and how cool it is and how fun it is. And we're going to spend the hour in the afternoon on all these fun embellishments, and it'll be less technical, more talking about artistry kinds of stuff. But anyway, I'm glad you came, and welcome to my living room in Bellevue, Washington. And this is my quartet, the only quartet I have. So it's a glass quartet, and we all have really fun clothes. So I will talk to you this afternoon. Enjoy Dee Dee. Bye.
Well, thank you so much, Lea. We loved your class. I think we're really excited for your second class today that you'll be doing with us today. Our next class in our Summer AIM event is Dee Dee Nibbler's class coming up at 11:30, titled Breathing to Sing. So we will see you in 10 short minutes. Thank you, everybody. See you back here shortly.